All right. So we have a non-filtered community, usually referred to internally as NFPC, non-filtered podcast community, where community members are often given polls or surveys or questions, or they just write in questions. And a lot of times we use those to kind of be the thread that we pull and weave together in episodes. And other times we use them for just solo episodes, like this one's going to be. Excuse me. And this one landed a little differently. You're going to think a little weird of this, but it's just bear with me. A member, Sean, of the non-filter community asked me a question, and no exaggeration, it stopped me for a minute. What ultimately led you to write the Untruth of Kindness? And if you're not familiar with what the Untruth of Kindness is, it's a book I wrote. I'll put the link in the description so that you guys can see where you can get it if you want. The Untruth of Kindness: How Avoiding Discomfort Stifles Growth. And most people assume, oh, this is an easy answer. And that's my first reaction was, oh, I know the answer. But then I realized this is a deeper question. And I don't know the answer in a clean way. Because the real answer isn't just one moment, it's like a trail of moments, a bunch of little moments that didn't feel like a thing until it became a thing. And if I'm being honest, the root of it's not what people would assume. It wasn't politics. It wasn't internet war. It wasn't outrage. It wasn't me trying to provoke. It wasn't me trying to be edgy. It was loneliness and something else. It was this weird, painful identity level tension of hearing someone say, I should be kinder, when I believed deep down to my core that I was being kind. And that sentence, it planted something. Not right away. I didn't even know it did at that point. It just, looking back, I know that's where the seed was planted. So let me unpack this and walk you through it. I'm going to do this in a way I actually experienced it. So buckle up. You're going to go on a little journey. And it's not like a perfect story, but like I'm going to give you the messy version. It's just me kind of verbal vomiting into this mic and letting you guys experience this raw, authentic moment where what led me to ultimately write the Untruth of Kindness. Now, before I talk about Indiana University or IBM or any of my startups or any of my clubs or any of the businesses I've been involved with, or even Iowa, I've got to go further back because I think a lot of this started when I was a kid. Like for most of us, things really get planted and rooted as we are kids. As a kid, we moved around a few times, quite a few times. Different schools, new neighborhoods, new social rules, new cool kids, new teachers, new everything. And if you've ever been the new kid once, you know what that feels like. But if you've been the new kid multiple times, then you know you learn a skill. You learn to read rooms. I was almost always the outsider. So I learned to watch people. I watched how they talked, what got laughs, what got someone ignored, how groups formed, who got status, who got picked last, who could get away with stuff and who couldn't. And I was curious. I was a really curious kid. Innately, I learned for some reason, I just asked a lot of questions. I wanted to know things. But I'm going to tell you something that's a little exposing. A lot of my curiosity as a kid wasn't just, I'm interested, it was also survival. Because when you're the outsider, you start learning to ask, how do I fit in here? What matters to these people? What's the code? What's the unspoken rules? Now, some kids respond to that by becoming loud or tough or rebellious. I'm sure I went through some of those phases, but mostly my response was watch, learn, adapt. In my inner circle, I often refer to this as the chameleon. I wasn't trying to be fake, not be someone I'm not, but to calibrate. And that wiring, once it's in, once that programming's embedded, it doesn't leave. Even as an adult, I still genuinely love people. I really do. But I also have this internal radar that notices when something's off, when something is closed, when I'm not invited in, when the temperature changes, when the hairs kind of stand up here and there on the back of your neck or on your arm. Although I got some goosebumps right now. And I think that matters a lot for what happened later. We'll get to that because I just didn't grow up curious. I grew up curious because curiosity was my bridge to belonging. Now, I want you to keep that in mind. My bridge to belonging was my curiosity. Now, fast forward, and I'm at Indiana University earning my MBA in a full-time program. And about a third of my class was international students. And I knew that going in. So I intentionally put myself in proximity to these international students. I tried to get lunches with them. I'd get team assignments with them. I'd work on projects with them, not because it was some look at me thing. It was because I truly was curious. I wanted to learn. I knew that if I was going to be successful in whatever I did, I had to understand people, truly like understand them. I wanted to understand their backgrounds, their motivations, their taboos, their humor, the way they valued and what they feared, and sometimes what success meant to them and where they came from and what they'd been taught about people like me. And truly, it was a privilege. Not everybody has access to that kind of, and not all of us go into it with the intention and being present in the moment of thinking, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of it. Because when you go into and you realize something, when you can sit with someone whose worldview is completely different than yours and still connect deeply, sometimes even more deeply, because those differences make you pay attention. Those differences make you careful. Those differences make you humble. So curiosity wasn't survival anymore. Curiosity became growth. It became connection. It became love, honestly. And it shaped me. Then fast forward and you have the privilege of working for a global company like IBM. I got to be part of teams that touched more than 80 countries. 80. I mean, that's insane when you say it out loud. And again, privilege, real privilege, because you learn fast that people thrive differently, they work differently, they think differently, they get inspired differently, they disagree differently. And I tell you what surprised me. Even when I met people at Indiana or at IBM, and they've grown up with these narratives about Americans or or about white people or about white men or about people that came from Christian backgrounds. Uh, Even when I could tell there was these perception barriers, there was still engagement happening. Sure, there were debates, sometimes real debates, but that was effort. There was effort, there was movement, there was this sense of let's test this. Let's understand each other. Let's grow together. And something in all of that, somewhere, I formed a belief system that I didn't even realize I had. It was basically curiosity is respect, depth is care, and truth and growth are love. And that became how I connected. That became how I build relationships. That became how I lead. That became how I mentor. It became how I try to parent. It became how I try to show up and how I show love. And that's important because if you understand that, you understand why Iowa hit me the way. Remember, we're trying to help a young man named Sean understand what ultimately led me to write this book, The UnTruth of Kindness. So now we're to Iowa. And I didn't move to Iowa for a job. I moved to Iowa to raise children. My wife's from here. She has a big extended family here. And I wanted my kids to be part of a large, extended, loving family. Yes, I'm from West Michigan. I had access to a large family, but I wanted more for my kids, more closeness, more belonging, more stability, more we've got you. So I guess I moved to Iowa for legacy, for roots, for family. And here's the key. I assumed it would feel like home. I mean, Midwest is Midwest, right? West Michigan, Iowa, blue collar, hardworking, salt of the earth people. I assumed there would be this relational rhythm and that everything would kind of be similar. I assumed curiosity would be welcomed. I assumed asking questions would be normal. I assumed connecting would be so easy. No, it was, and I didn't understand why. I'd try to get to know people, like generally, not in a networking way, not in a superficial way, in a real way. Like, what do you like? What do you dislike? What do you care about? What do you believe? What shaped you? What scares you? What do you want for your kids? Yeah, I mean, and it felt like every attempt was me pushing, like Sisyphus pushing that boulder up the hill. I was the only one truly trying. And eventually I started to feel like nobody gave a shit about getting to know me. And that's a hard thing to say out loud because it sounds like whining, and I'm not whining. And I'm not saying it for sympathy. I'm saying it because it's true. And when it's not just acquaintances, when it's your neighbors, when it's coworkers, when it's family you inherited through marriage, it hits a different nerve because now, if you could imagine, it's not just do they like me? It became, will I ever be accepted here? And then your mind begins to do what the mind does, and it builds stories, it fills in the gaps. Did I make a mistake moving here? Are my kids going to be punished by association with me? Did I mess up suggesting we move here? Did I do something wrong from the get go just by being me? Did I unknowingly end up in some gossip mill? What did I say? What did I do? Who did I offend? I mean, the list goes on. Do they think I'm arrogant? Do they think I'm intense? Do they think I'm unsafe? And it's just this mental spiral you get in that it's exhausting because now you're not just lonely. You're lonely and confused. And confusion often, almost always breeds irritation because irritation is, I believe, is what loneliness becomes when it doesn't get resolved. So, so what did I do? I did something I'm not proud of, but I understand it. I hardened. I closed off. I began to mirror back exactly what I was receiving: silence. I was silent unless spoken to. I stopped reaching. And I tell you something, it did feel like I gained back some power. I felt like I was in charge of my own identity. It was like I tried, I wanted, I was curious. Hey, I showed up. And if you don't, that's on you. And I felt kind of strong in that moment. I felt like I had agency again. It felt like I'm not going to go beg for belonging. And I guess there's something a little healthy about that. There is, but there's something really sad about it too. Because power isn't the same as fulfillment. Sovereignty isn't the same as connection. So, yeah, I might have felt a little powerful and gained some agency back, but the loneliness didn't disappear. It just went quiet. And then something else happened. I started meeting, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I started meeting other outsiders, people in Iowa who weren't from there, who felt just like I was. They were feeling the same as I did. And that felt really good at the time because it was confirming what I was feeling. Oh, okay, I'm not crazy. Then it threatens something in me because my identity is an outsider. In my mind, I'm a bridge builder. I'm curious. I generally move towards people. So now I'm in this internal conflict. How can I be true to myself? How can I be true to myself and still encounter these walls, this silence, this friction without becoming bitter, resentful? And I didn't want to be the guy that just wrote everyone off. You've met those people. Oof. I didn't want to be the lonely guy at the end of the bar, sitting by himself. It's not me. I've said for years some version of fuck them. They don't get me. Not everybody has to. And there's truth in that. But I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want to provoke it. How do I want to say this? I didn't want to be provocative for sport. I truly wanted to understand because it was confusing as hell to me. How can it be so easy with people from across the world, across cultures, across major differences? People who grew up firmly in a belief system that Americans are evil, that me as a male is a threat, that me as a white person is a threat. And they open up and they are and we're growing together. How can it be so hard here? Iowa, I mean, this is next door basically. Same region, same salt of the earth vibe. Yet I'm feeling like I'm living on a different planet. The question alone could drive some people crazy. And then my wife said something. This is where the seed came in. My wife said more than once, you could be kinder. And I'll be honest, I resisted that immediately because in my brutal truth, I believed I was being kind at my core. And I'm not saying that like I'm some saint. I'm not. I'm saying it like my intention was care. My intention was connection. My intention was love. My intention was growth. So when my wife of 20 something years says you could be kinder, I'll admit what I heard wasn't, hey, adjust your tone. What I heard was your character is off. And you have to imagine your partner telling you your character is off. And that hits deep because I'm many things, but I'm not cruel. I'm not mean. I don't believe I am. I'm not trying to hurt people. So it stuck. I didn't know it at the time that it stuck, but it did because it forced an uncomfortable question. Whoa, what if my definition of kindness isn't universal? What if curiosity feels like pressure to someone else? What if questions feel like interrogation? What if depth feels like destabilizing someone's safety? What if growth feels like they're not enough? And that's where it gets tricky because from my side, curiosity is love. But from someone else's side, curiosity might feel like critique. Oh shit, now there's a gap. And the gap isn't theoretical anymore. It's marriage level. It's family level. It's community. It's the gap between intention and perception. And I think the seed of the book was planted right there. But I still didn't know it. Then May 2020, we all remember COVID. That was a wonderful time. World on pause, everything felt off and weird. We're on lockdown. But because we own a medical practice, we were asked to stay open. So it was just a weird time. Kids are upstairs. My wife's upstairs. They're all sleeping. And I'm downstairs, quiet house. And I throw on a documentary, The Innocent Man. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. There's a documentary, The Innocent Man. Then there's a series, The Innocent Man, kind of the same thing. And there's this interrogation scene, and I'm watching an innocent person explain themselves. And the more they explain, the more it was used against them. I'm sitting there thinking, Jesus Christ, man, they're not guilty. Oh, And it kind of hit me. But guilt wasn't what was happening there. It's perception becoming reality. I'm not saying it's a true reality, but I'm saying perception was becoming this reality. The system didn't need truth. It almost didn't even want truth. It wanted a story. It wanted other outside human beings to fill in the gaps so that they feel safe. They understand. They don't want to be under fear. So they fill in the gaps with a story. And that hit me. Holy shit, I've been there. Not in a courtroom, but in life. Explaining myself, trying to clarify, trying to show intention, and watching someone else's face twist into offense or dismissal or judgment. And realizing, oh, they heard something else. And this question formed. This is the real ignition question that really led to this book. Who is more responsible? The one with intention or the one with perception? And I'll admit, I couldn't let it go. I still can't let this one go, because if perception can imprison an innocent person, oh, what's it doing in marriages? What's it doing to families? What's it doing to leadership teams? What's it doing to communities? What's it doing to me? And then I realized I've been living inside of this question. In Iowa, in family, in connection, in the "you could be kinder" comment, in the silence, in the loneliness. I felt like the innocent man living in a perception prison. Not because people are evil, but because the gap wasn't being bridged. So when people hear the untruth of kindness, some assume it's just provocation. It's not. It's an interrogation. Because in order to grow, in order to understand, in order to learn, even if I had to do it by myself, I had to interrogate both sides, intention and perception. I had to ask, is my intensity always love? Is my truth always kind? Do I sometimes mistake growth for goodness? Do I push before trust exists? Do I ask questions before maybe a safety net is built? At the same time, I had to ask, when did kindness become comfort? When did discomfort become harm? When did silence become a virtue? And when did avoidance become being a good person? Because here's what I started to see. And a lot of what we call kindness in modern culture isn't kindness. It's conflict avoidance. It's don't rock the boat. It's don't make me uncomfortable. It's don't challenge my assumptions. It's even don't say the thing that needs to be said. And I'm not trying to say comfort is bad. I'm saying comfort is not the highest virtue. In fact, I don't even believe it is a virtue. Growth is not comfortable. Truth isn't always comfortable. Hell, accountability isn't comfortable. Change isn't comfortable. So, what happens when culture makes comfort the standard of kindness? And this took me, it really took me a while to kind of unpack this. I want you to think about that. What happens to a culture when they make comfort the standard for kindness? I would say and argue it punishes depth, it punishes honesty, it punishes the very conversations that create real connection. Not to go off on a tangent, but it punishes the very conversations that we right now, especially in this country, need to be having with each other. Not online, not through text, not electronically, face to face. Because those conversations are the only thing that are going to create real connection. And then we all wonder why everyone feels isolated. Anyway, back. So I'm sitting with that. And I'm also sitting with my own side of it. Even if my intention is love, the impact still matters. If people are consistently experiencing me as pressure, I have to ask, what am I doing? Not to self hate, not to shrink, not ever again shrink, but to grow. Because if I preach growth, really, so I had to interrogate even deeper. What is kindness? Really. And here's what I came to believe. And I'm not saying believe as this is law, because I'm still learning. Kindness is not nice. Nice is often some social compliance. Nice is often, I'll say what keeps things smooth. Nice is often, I'll avoid truth to avoid conflict. Kindness, real kindness is deeper. Kindness is being honest with care. Kindness is being direct with humility. Kindness is pursuing truth without humiliation. Kindness is challenging people, pushing back without crushing them. Kindness is staying connected while still being real. And so this is where the untruth lives. If kindness is defined as never causing discomfort, then truth becomes unkind by definition. I'm going to say that again so that you guys really can understand it. If a culture defines kindness as never causing discomfort, then truth becomes unkind by definition. And that's bullshit. It's bullshit. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is tell the truth. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is to have that hard conversation. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to participate. But, and this is important, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is deliver truth in a way that someone can actually receive. Not coddle them, but that it sticks. They received it. it caused some discomfort because connection is the bridge that makes truth usable. So I had to learn truth without empathy can become self righteous, and empathy without truth can become enabling. And kindness lives in that tension. I didn't write the untruth of kindness to win some argument. I'll be honest. It began as just a journaling exercise. I wrote it because I was trying to figure out how to build a bridge. I wanted to put language into something I couldn't explain in the moment. Because in the moment, when you're being misperceived, you either, as I often did and do, defend yourself and look guilty, or withdraw and then look cold, or play along into their definition and perform niceness, but then betray yourself. And I got tired of that. So I started to look at the journal as maybe this could be a book. Something that says, especially to those in my love circle, here's who I am. Here's how I love. Here's how I connect. Here's why I ask questions. Here's why I push for growth. Not as a demand, as an offering, as a bridge. And yeah, part of me hoped people close to me would read it and come to understand me more because that's human. I'm human. And if you've ever felt misread by people that you love, you know that ache. And if you've ever felt like you're trying and they're not meeting you, you know that loneliness. So I wrote it for me and I wrote it for them. And I wrote it for anyone who's ever thought, understand, my intentions are good. Why do I keep getting labeled as the bad guy or the bad person? So if you're listening to this, I want to ask you something. Where in your life are you being misperceived? Where are you trying and not being met? Where have you hardened because it was safer than reaching? Where have you said internally, or maybe even externally, I'm done? And also, I'm going to flip it to the other side. Where have you interpreted someone's intensity as cruelty when it might have been from a place of love? Where have you called someone unkind when what you really meant was they made me feel unkind? And I'm not saying discomfort is good for its own sake. I'm saying discomfort is often the price of growth. So here's a practical thing. This is simple, but it's real. Try asking people in a calm moment. Right. I mean, when you say kindness, what do you mean? Because you might not mean the same thing. And if you don't mean the same thing, you'll fight forever, never knowing what. And another one, what did you hear me say? That one's tough. That's my side. Like, because the question exposes the gap immediately and it's awkward, but it's powerful. So back to the question from Sean. What ultimately led me to write The Untruth of Kindness? Sean, it wasn't one thing. It was childhood wiring as an outsider. It was curiosity becoming the bridge to belonging. It was decades of exposure where engagement and growth felt normal. It was moving for my children and expecting belonging and experiencing silence instead. It was extreme loneliness. And then the heart. It was my wife planting the seed. You could be kinder. And me resisting because I believed I was kind. It was a documentary that exposed the deeper pattern of perception versus intention. And perception can often imprison the intention. And a question I couldn't escape: who is more responsible for the gap between intention and perception? That's where it started. And I'm still learning, but at least now I know more about what I'm learning about. And to my listeners, thank you. Thank you. It's growing. We're gaining more and more each week. And you're obviously all sharing this with people you know. And if you've lived any version of this, drop a comment or message. Not to take sides, but to surface the real stuff, because it's the fastest way to build connection is to tell the truth cleanly without. All right, Sean, everybody, that's the origin story. That's my journey. And that's why I wrote it. And if you know somebody that this would hit really hard for, help them grow, share it, send it to them. Until next time, I'm Adam Howland. This is NonFiltered. I'll see you on the next round.